Hi, everyone. Welcome here. Sitting down to write at any time is like planning a trip. Even the most spontaneous of trips needs a plan. You can't just, this is terrible. Okay. Even the most spontaneous trips needs a bit of planning. You need to know where you're going, where you're starting from, what resources you have. Um, and it's a lot like writing. Even looking at when you're facing the blank page, um, it's terrifying, and it is that moment when we decide there's so many things that can happen, there's so many possibilities, and so much could go wrong. Um, so if you're anything like me, when I'm sitting down to write and I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this, what I'm thinking about, what I'm going to do, that is when the self doubt and the fear and the inner saboteur is at its loudest. In this video, I'm going to share with you why knowing yourself, knowing the tools that you have, and the resources you have available is the first step to writing, whether you're writing for the first time or if you're writing for the first time today. Like I said, there's so many possibilities when we're facing that blank page. And that's when our inner saboteur gets the loudest. It makes us feel like you don't know enough, you didn't prepare enough, maybe you should have outlined more, you're not good enough. Or you start to wonder what happens if we actually succeed. What if this actually goes somewhere? It's terrifying. So as you're jumping on, let me know where you're coming in from. And let me know where you are with your writing right now. I'd love to hear from you. If we haven't met before, I am Sherry, your novel writing coach. I love working with writers just like you to unlock your creative genius so that the words flow, that you write the stories that you want to write, that you grow your readership, and you level up your publishing career, whether without self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and guilt. So again, whether you're sitting down to write for the first time ever or the first time today, the self-doubt gets really loud when we're facing that blank page. And it's important to know about ourselves. And it's the first step to writing. Now, I have a great resource that I'm going to share with you. If you want it, just drop "want it" in the comments, and I will send you a great free resource that will help you dive deeper into this as we go through. So, when we're going on a trip, we know we can't just, I love in the movies when they just like jump on the plane, just like take me anywhere. But even then, you still need to plan. You still need to, you're not going to go, okay, well, I'm at the airport, so fly me from Vancouver to San Lucas when you live in Toronto. So you need to know where you're starting from. And you need, you're not going to plan a road trip in a fancy RV if all you have is a tent. You're not going to plan to eat at all the restaurants if all you have is a cook stove and some money to stop at the local grocery store. So the first thing we need to know is what you already have. The biggest mistake writers often make, or where we get stuck, is thinking that we don't know anything. And that's simply not true. Even if you've never written before, you've taken some kind of class before. So we often think that, oh, I haven't taken this graduate degree, or I didn't take creative writing in school. I know I thought for the longest time that when I didn't take the creative writing class that I got into in grade 11, but switched schools, that, oh no, now I'm out of luck. Like, I don't know, I'll never get published. And it's simply not true. There is so much that we know about ourselves, that we know about writing. So make a list of things that you've done, courses, workshops, if you're part of a writing group, if you've received feedback from anybody. And it's important to remember that you know stuff. You know how to tell a story, even if you've never taken any classes, there was nothing, not even a simple module in grade school, but you've read books. You've watched TV shows. You've learned about storytelling that way. You know stuff already. The second thing to know is what resources you have available. My family loved to travel in the summertime. We were lucky. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a teacher, so we got summers off. And the I mean, all our summer trips were great, but our best trip was when we went to Florida. And this was about a year of planning. We were going to drive. We had a tent trailer. So those are the resources that we already had, the tools that we had. And we knew where we wanted to go. It was, we were going to drive down through Texas and stop at Houston. We were going to go through Louisiana, Alabama, down through Florida, obviously Disney World. Obviously, you can't take kids to Florida and not go to Disney World and Epcot, through to the Everglades and back. But that's about all we knew. So we knew that we had to find more resources. We had to get maps. We had to get travel guides. Now, this was back before the internet, well before the internet. So that was a project my brother and I had. We had to write to all the different state tourist departments, or whatever they were called back then. And we had to get all the travel guides sent to us. And oh, was that ever exciting when we got those travel guides in the mail and we could plot out exactly what we're going to do. I'm still that way. I think planning the trip is more exciting than anything. But we knew what resources we needed to get, and we knew where to look them up to get them. So the same thing with writing. You have the tools, but we are going to grow as writers, and so we need to know where to get these resources. Because our inner saboteur likes to tell us, oh, you don't know it? Well, I guess that's it. You're dumb. Too bad for you. You'll never make it. But again, it's just not true. So you know where to find resources. You know that perhaps you have access to a local library or bookstore. You can get books at the bookstore. Of course, there's University of Google and BookTube. You may have access to a writers organization. In Manitoba here, we have the Manitoba Writers Guild, and Canada Arts Council, and there's all kinds of resources available, so that if there's something, you need to learn about how to describe, work on your description or character development, or, anything like that, there are resources available, and that you can find them. The third thing we need to do is to know what we've done. And this is my favorite part, because often we mistake writing for publishing. We always feel like we haven't done enough. And so, you go on social media and all our friends are posting about, oh, I'm getting this story published, and it's great. And, and we're getting our stuff published, great, but it never feels like it's enough. And that's because we're mistaking publishing for writing. Publishing is the end goal, but writing is what is important. And we learn everything, even if it isn't published. So, make a list of everything you've written, every short story, every half-finished draft, every outline you've done, because it all counts. It all goes towards what you know. And when you look back on what you've written the first time, the first story you ever wrote, you will see how wonderfully terrible it was and how much better you've gotten, even though your first draft looks like it's terrible right now. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 examples of when this information is helpful. The first is when you're first starting to write. You've never written before, or you never actually sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write my novel now, or my memoir, or, my nonfiction book. You never sat down to write before. Make a list of all the things you know already. It is a good overview to have that. Maybe you've already written letters to the editor, or poetry that you did in high school, or, all of it counts. It's a good overview to remind you that you know stuff already, and you have the resources available so that you can move forward. The second example is when you're starting your second novel or third novel, but you've already written one. We know often that the second one is the hardest one, because writing, you already know how much time it takes, all the work that goes into it, and it gets really daunting. So make a list of, when you make these lists of what resources you have available and what you've done already, you can, keep track of things like times you want to start procrastinating, or if you write better with silence, or if you're listening to music, or if you're more productive if you're wearing a certain t-shirt, or have a certain specific kind of tea out of a specific kind of mug. And that will help, again, the words to flow. And the final example I'm going to give you is when you're starting a new writing session. Every day, or each day, or once a week, or you've been writing, you're writing regularly, and you're in the middle of a novel, you're starting a new scene, and you're starting to get bogged down, and you're thinking, oh, like, I love living in the moment. I believe firmly in living in the moment of the story that you're writing, but it can also get really daunting, and you can bog down in how much work it needs and how much editing you need to do, and it doesn't feel good. And so have that list beside you of all that you know, the resources that you have available, and all that you've done. And let that build confidence in you. Be proud of all that you've done, and that you're willing to grow as a writer. So whether you're sitting down writing for the first time ever, or the first time today, when we know who we are, when we know what tools we have, what resources we have available, and what we've done already, the words will flow a lot easier, and our confidence in ourselves and our writing will grow. So make a list of what you already know about writing. Make a list of all the resources you have available to you, and make a list of everything you've ever written. Keep that beside you. And if you want a great free resource that will help you do that, drop "I want it" in the comments, and I will send that to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Sherry, your novel writing coach. Until next time, happy writing.